Dear students, welcome back. So let us continue with the poem Breaking Silence. Hope all of you have referred to the previous video lessons that were uploaded. In the last class, we had stopped with this particular stanza that concluded with the lines given here. Our bodies were loud with yellow screaming flesh needing to be silenced behind barbed wire. These lines actually indicate a strong sense of prejudice that had led to a brutal form of racial oppression. It was as if their skin color, the color yellow as it was commonly described, and their looks in general had loudly proclaimed that they belonged to a particular identity, that they belonged to a particular ethnicity, making them rather unfit for some basic rights and privileges. It was as if they were unfit to be treated respectfully just because they belonged to this particular category of Asian Americans, Japanese Americans. They were meant to be subdued and ruthlessly oppressed in an unimaginable manner. They were considered as individuals worthy of confinement, that is, people who had to be imprisoned without any kind of trial. They had to endure torture because of their identity, that is, just because they were Japanese Americans. They had to remain forever subordinate, passive, obedient, and silent. So, the author is actually critiquing such conceptions that the authorities had forcefully imposed upon them. Now let us continue. Here again we find another segment of her mother's testimony. Let me read it. Mr. Commissioner, it seems we were singled out from others who were under suspicion. Our neighbors were of German and Italian descent, some of whom were not citizens. It seems we were singled out. So, the meaning is quite clear here, isn't it? Her mother is openly expressing that strong feeling of injustice, a profound sense of inhumanity that she was subject to. Not just her mother, but the entire Japanese American community. She talks about how the Japanese Americans were singled out from others. Actually, they were the ones who raised greater suspicion. She's talking about some of their neighbors who were of German and Italian descent. That is, they were also not pure Americans. The only difference with them was that they belonged to the West. They were Western people. And some of them didn't even have American citizenship. But they were not penalized in any manner, though they didn't even have proper citizenship. So, this was again an explicit form of discrimination that shows how a certain group of people could be just pushed mercilessly to the margins, making them feel alienated and oppressed. I guess you have understood the meaning contained in this stanza, that is, this part which expresses her mother's testimony. This, in a sense, points to certain general biases, prejudices, and misconceptions that have traditionally divided the East from the West. That is, there are certain characteristics that are attributed to people belonging to specific cultures with the aim to oppress them, to silence them, and to make themselves feel rather unimportant and insignificant. So this revelation is an indication of just another instance of such racial discrimination. Okay, so let me continue. She had worn her work like lemon leaves, shining in her sweat, driven by her dreams that honed the blade of her plough. The land she built like hope grew quietly, irises, roses, sweet peas, opening. And then all was hushed for announcements to be incarcerated for your own good. The sounds of her work bolted in barracks, silenced. Here again, we see the author continuing to recall the hard work and perseverance of her mother through a series of images that actually indicate how her mother had perfected the art of creating things. Now, this was already suggested in one of the previous stanzas. I hope you remember that. How she had worked hard, producing a number of vegetables, growing fields of flowers, thereby manifesting her remarkable skills in cultivation. So here again in this stanza we find Mirikitani referring to this art of her mother, cultivating and growing a wide variety of items, including flowers and a lot of grains. And throughout, she derived inspiration from her own dreams. Her dreams propelled her actions, leading her to continue hoping for a better, bright future. It is said here that her dreams honed the blade of her plough. That is, a farming implement actually. So what does that indicate? It shows how her dreams acted like a driving force, inspiring her to work hard, to put in all her efforts to make way for a safe and secure future. Her hopes grew almost simultaneously with the transformations that were happening on her land. That is, how her land was slowly growing, giving birth to irises, roses, sweet peas. Now these indicate a fruition, a sense of completion of her hard work and determination. Iris is referring to a small plant which gives out purple-colored flowers. So once again we are made to realize the sincerity, the hard work, the dedication of her mother to her ideals. And while things were progressing in this manner, something happened. And we know what it was. Yes, the order which asked them to leave their homes. The order which meant that they were to be confined soon within internment camps. So, let us read the next few lines. And then all was hushed for announcements to be incarcerated for your own good. The sounds of her work bolted in barracks, silenced. Now see, you find one line given in quotation marks. That means that a special emphasis is given to this particular sentence. It also indicates that it comes from somebody else. It could refer to the administrative order, the words of the authorities. And what does that line speak of? Yes, it tries to inculcate a false sense of safety and protection, because it says that this incarceration is for the good of the Japanese Americans. That is, they are not going to lose anything. This is a measure that is intended to protect them. Okay? So, all of a sudden, everything stopped. This executive order had made them believe that their incarceration was for their own good. They had no other option but to silently accept their own fate. Thus, the sound of creation was contained, rather forcefully, stopped. The sound of creation was silenced within barracks. Barracks again indicating military areas, and here the areas of confinement, the internment camps. So, these lines, the final lines, again reiterate the sense of injustice and agony that they had experienced as a result of such methods of control and subordination. Now let us move to the next stanza. Here we find that the author has taken on the persona of her own mother, probably speaking with the same emotions as that of her mother. So we'll see what is mentioned in this stanza. Mr. Commissioner, so when you tell me I must limit testimony, when you tell me my time is up, I tell you this. Pride has kept my lips pinned by nails, my rage coffined, but I exhume my past to claim this time. So here the first few lines show how her mother is probably responding to the instruction of the commissioner to limit her testimony in accordance with the time available. Maybe each of them would be given a specific amount of time to actually give their testimony, and the commissioner would have reminded her mother to limit her testimony. Maybe her time was up. Anyway, this stanza gains a lot of strength and intensity by the power of the words uttered by her mother. But we should also remember that it could be the author Mirikitani herself speaking in the guise of her mother. So, she gives vent to all her suppressed feelings by saying that a sense of pride had actually prevented her so far from expressing herself in such a manner. All her anger and frustration, anguish was lying stifled, bottled up within herself. She had maintained a dignified silence, thinking that it would protect all of them. She never thought of revolt or protest, thinking that this was the best option that suited them. This was how they were made to think actually, and she merely internalized such a belief. This was how it happened all this while, but not any longer. Because she says that she does not want to remain silent anymore. She declares rather powerfully that she wants to reclaim her past, her identity, ethnicity, everything, in fact, that has been suppressed, everything that has been lost by brute force. She wants to claim the present by reclaiming her past. So, it's actually a very powerful assertion where she says that she wants to reclaim her lost heritage, her roots, in order to live in the present, in order to claim this present. She wants to belong to this present, to make space for a new life, to start life anew. She wants to bring her community to the mainstream. She doesn't want her community to remain on the margins without any visibility. She wants every other person to know that they are also humans, they have their own dreams and hopes, and they have every life right to live just like others. So friends, let me stop here. This time I chose an online version of the poem for better clarity. I was not actually getting clear pictures from the textbook. Okay, So let us continue in the next clip. Thank you.